You guys ever just dive against the automatons and find yourself on some dark, war-torn planet on the outskirts of the Milky Way, and as you drop in, you see, well, this? Yeah, that's one scary machine. Makes the Terminators look like fuzzy little teddy bears. And it's not even just that. While you're down there, you see other things, sinister things, such as cages full of dead and dismembered colonists, Helldivers' corpses skewered on spikes, and biofuel processors whirring with an unknown red material, and begin to wonder, what exactly are the automatons doing on these planets? Doesn't it seem that all they're doing is a little too sadistic for apparent robots who should just be operating off, ones and zeros? Well, what if I told you there's something a lot deeper going on with the automatons? And that they, much like their predecessors, the cyborgs, are actually humans, with their brains encased in steel bodies, all to fight for the automaton collective. Well, that's exactly what I'm telling you. There's a lot of evidence in-game to imply that the automatons, the children of the cyborgs, are not 100% machine, but in fact are a biomechanical race that utilizes the human brain as its primary controller, sort of like a CPU, while foregoing the rest of their fleshy bodies. Before we get into it, let's start with a bit of history to lay the groundwork for this theory. Before the First Galactic War, and the events of Helldivers 1, the cyborgs were originally humans who found augmenting their bodies as achieving a higher form of life. And throughout Helldivers 1, we see all manner of human hybrid machines as the people began to modify themselves further and further from their natural form. It's important to note that at no point in the first game do we see any artificial intelligence, let alone sentient AI systems, used by the cyborgs. And it is key to understand that all the machines they utilized in that game were controlled by a person nestled somewhere deep inside the machine, whether that be the warlords, or hell, even the siege mech. Look at this goofy dude. So now, 100 years later, in the Second Galactic War, we see the automatons, who are considered the children of the cyborgs, arrive in decked out metallic bodies and are believed to be fully robotic. But let's just say, I'm not so convinced. Just on the face of this, that would mean that the cyborgs, who weren't using any AI systems in the first game, managed to build a sentient, self-replicating AI, all while being enslaved in the minds of Cyberstan, and then send it off to create the automaton forces somewhere in space, all within the 100-year time span between the two galactic wars. Which alone seems kind of far-fetched, especially for a race that has only known how to augment people into machines. Instead, I think it's far more likely that Super Earth is lying to us about the origins of the automatons. Super Earth is famous for lying to its people and covering up important facts about their enemies, and casually utilizes propaganda to create narratives that simply aren't true. I believe, much like how they painted the initially peaceful Terminids as evil fascist bugs that will kill you and your family, Super Earth knows that the automatons are really just an offshoot of the cyborgs, but perpetuates the lie that they are 100% robots to quell any questions or doubts people may have in their war against them. So, with this, let's talk about some of the hard evidence we see in game that raises the question, are the automatons more than just machine? First, let's start with their general mannerisms. When fighting the automatons, aside from their obviously sinister outwards appearance, with a good chunk of them sporting human skulls on their shoulders and backs, spiky metal bodies, and using bleak color schemes like black, grays, and reds, they appear to have their own thoughts and personalities, and will often insult and berate Helldivers with very emotionally charged voice lines. with them saying really hurtful things that make me cry, like Helldivers scum, human scum, Super Earth will burn, and more. And each bot is different, with every unit having their own distinct voice and flavor to insult you with. Here, have a listen to some of them. And just to add on to this, the automatons will actually scream and yell when they die, like as if they're screaming in pain, and also laugh maliciously and stuff as well while you're fighting them. In addition to this, if you listen to a patrol of bots who haven't spotted you, you can hear them chanting as if to strengthen their resolve or keep their morale high as they march around. Take a listen to this. Kind of crazy, right? That robots would be chanting and singing like this. It's widely accepted that they are chanting these words: heart, steel, we, kill, iron, will, onto war, Cyberstan, can't keep her down, we count down, the new dawn. Now, I don't know about you, but this chant is dripping with extremely human-like behaviors, with the automatons singing about a clear desire to fight for their planet and destroy their enemies. This chant goes even deeper than that, however, with it spelling out a clear story. In this chant, the automatons are utilizing fundamental humanistic concepts such as referring to their hearts and wills, fighting for their homeland, and even looking forward to a new future, or new dawn, as they put it. This chant even goes as far as to humanize the planet of Cyberstan, their home planet, itself, with the bots referring to it as a her. All these concepts should be relatively foreign, or generally suboptimal to even think about, for a machine, and yet they do it. Given both the personal insults and taunts the automatons make, and their military chants, it is at the very least clear that the automatons have a grasp of emotions such as hate, resolve, morale, and even idealistic goals, or, for a lack of a better word, dreams, which alone already proves that there's more than code operating them. Environmental cues. Another thing that makes you wonder about the automatons is the stuff you see on their planets. That on their own will make you wonder why a cold, calculating AI robot race would need to do any of these things. For example, the automatons have a fully translatable language, and from it, we can see warning signs, instructions, and more plastered on their equipment and heavy machinery. Here, we can see a poster literally warning the automatons of high voltage electricity. Or on this sign, you can see essentially a propaganda message, with the sign saying, "You are a cog in the machine," and that you are the collective. And there's plenty more of these messages plastered about automaton planets. I encourage you to check out the translated alphabet and take a look for any other interesting messages that they might have in game. Now, why would a robot need to be able to stop and even read the instructions on how to operate a crane, or even be warned of danger for that matter? Wouldn't it just know how these things operated already if there were a sentient or collective AI system? And even if that was true, why would you even need warnings at all? A true machine wouldn't even care if an automaton or two got electrocuted when operating a device. And that's not even mentioning the propaganda. Why would they need to remind themselves or reinforce their part in the collective and why they fight if these automatons didn't have their own individual thoughts and feelings? Both of these things imply the automatons are fallible and can make basic mistakes similar to how a human would, and essentially proves at the very least automatons are capable of individual thought. Anyways, we can also see on many bot planets extremely cruel acts of torture and execution of both human colonists, Seaf forces, and Helldivers. On a lot of the automaton bases, we can see dead Seaf and Helldivers' bodies skewered on spikes as some sort of warning or maybe even trophies of the automatons. We also see many more dead and dismembered colonists being stored in boxes, cages, and even on operating tables, clearly indicating that the bots are doing something with the corpses after death. What exactly that is? Well, let me tell you. As far as I can tell, there's two possibilities regarding the colonist corpses being stored and operated on. The new recruit theory. We can see that a suspicious number of dead colonists around bot planets seem to be conveniently missing their heads. It is entirely possible that the automatons are killing colonists on frontier super-Earth planets and taking their heads to then steal their brains and put them in new automaton bodies as a form of recruitment. To further reinforce this theory, it's interesting to note that all the bodies that are being stored and collected only appear to be colonists and not Seaf or Helldiver personnel. This actually may be implying that the automatons don't see Super-Earth's soldiers as worthy of becoming automatons, while the colonists are more or less innocent bystanders in this war, and as such are seen as worthy as having the opportunity to become an automaton, unlike the Seaf or Helldivers that they hate so much. The bots may even be doing this as some sort of twisted favor to the colonists, as the bots see becoming machines as a higher form of life. In their twisted view, they are giving the colonists freedom from Super-Earth by letting them join the automaton collective and fight back against their oppressor. Just to add to this theory, here's a picture of what appears on the illegal broadcasts in-game, showing more automaton propaganda with it saying, and I quote, "We have obliterated inequality," unquote, which, as stated before, shows the automatons' idealistic attitude towards their collective and believe it's superior to Super-Earth. If this is true, and the automatons really are using the colonists' brains to make more bots, it would help justify some of the weirder, more distressed voice lines we sometimes see and hear the bots saying. For instance, take the berserkers in-game, who sometimes sound seemingly scared or remorseful as they go after you in-game. Take a listen to these. Yeah, right? I mean, that doesn't sound like a malicious, hateful scream. You know, they're talking about Super-Earth here, or they're screaming for help, or yelling no, or at the very least, their distinct scream alerts you as the player that they're coming up from behind you, which seems counterproductive to the fact that they're trying to kill you. Like, tell me, has this ever happened to you? Because I know for sure it has to me. If he just shut his mouth, he would have killed me. So, what this could mean is that the automatons are taking the colonists and, putting their brains in their machines, whether the colonists wanted it or not, and they just kind of did it regardless, indifferent to what the colonists felt about it. And while some of the colonists might actually be happy with their new automaton form, it seems that there actually might be a few that still are loyal to Super-Earth deep inside the automatons, primarily the berserkers. With these colonists stuck inside the automatons, trying to scream at us, the Helldivers, to warn us and potentially save our lives. The second theory, the biofuel theory. Another possible option for the bodies is that the automatons are repurposing them for biofuel in their biofuel processors, which, as the name suggests, is clearly some sort of fuel made out of biological material. As you can clearly see, we have colonist bodies next to these machines being mushed and mashed into this red paste as some sort of fuel, which to the bot's credit is actually quite smart, considering there is no shortage of human corpses on these contested worlds for the automatons to use. But what is this biofuel used for? I believe it's possible that the biofuel that we see the automatons creating here out of corpses is actually used to power the automatons themselves. If you've never noticed, almost all the automatons have these weird red cords and pipes lining the insides of their bodies, almost like veins. It's possible that the red cords we see on them might actually be full of this biofuel that they use to power themselves. Which, if true, since we know the biofuel is actually human corpses, would mean that the automatons are actually just using human sludge as blood of sorts to keep their very human brains alive and operational inside their machines. Either way, it's evident the biofuel is being used for something, whether that's just for their ships and war machines, or for powering human brains, it's unknown. But we do know for a fact that the automatons are using organic biofuel somehow. Gameplay. Alright, now we're going to talk a bit about the automatons and how they react and operate in game, and just kind of take a look at their overall, models and body structures. First thing to note is if we look at the automaton units, we can see that pretty much every ground enemy is a direct upgrade from the basic trooper. We can see that the body of the trooper basically fits or upgrades into the Devastator and, the Berserker as well, then up into the Striders, and then presumably they are operating the Hulks, tanks, and gunships as well. This implies that the automatons are really just the troopers who pilot or control bigger units, akin to a person hopping into a mech suit. If the bots were 100% machine, wouldn't they have ways to integrate their minds into the machines directly without the need of an operator? But despite this, we see them manually operating things like machine gun turrets, the Striders themselves. Essentially, the automaton trooper is a direct mirror of a human, with their war tech designed to be operated, opposed to being directly integrated in, like you'd expect a robot or an AI to do. Which is interesting to note, as I believe helps show us that the bots still need individual agency to operate their machines. Again, following a very human concept. Aside from this, we can see general things like the fact that headshots are the automaton's weak spot, like most games. But the reason headshots are weak spots in most games is because they destroy the brain. If the bots were 100% machine, why would headshots kill them instantly, if not, for destroying the brain? Sure, you can argue that their essential components like their CPUs or motherboards are in their heads, but couldn't they just move or relocate the motherboards and CPUs somewhere safer, like into their chest, if they were fully machines? Why do they bother following the human structure? Here's a picture from Reddit of an automaton's destroyed head close up. And as you can see, the poster was questioning as to if he could see a brain in there or not. And if you look closely enough at the head, you can see what kinda looks similar to a human brain. But this is kind of a reach, so take it with a grain of salt. On a different note, we also have the automaton impact sprites. When shooting the automatons, we see this reddish-brown liquid splash out. Now, one could argue it's oil, but I believe it's far more likely to be that of the biofuel we discussed earlier, and the reddish sludge we see is probably actually the repurposed colonists' biological material used to keep the bots alive. So essentially, it's ground-up human blood, probably mixed with, like, oil, or WD-40 or something. Furthermore, as a strategy in-game, you can actually suppress the automatons with heavy volumes of gunfire. This begs the question, why would a robot react, or even feel the pressures of suppressive fire? I believe it's far more likely that it actually sparks real human behaviors of fear and panic in the brains of the automatons when under suppressive fire. We can also see that gas is effective against bots, and you'd think that gas, a weapon used to kill biological life, wouldn't work against the bots if they were 100% machine, but gas does in fact kill them in-game. Sure, you can say the gas fries their CPUs or some other sensitive equipment, but given the above points, I believe it's far more likely that the gas is affecting the biofuel and the brain, so the organic bits inside the machines, thus killing them. So, all these general gameplay mechanics, while interesting to note, could just be for the sake of gameplay, and I might be reading too much into it. But on the other hand, in addition to what we've been seeing with their mannerisms and the stuff they're doing on their planets and their biofuel processors and, all that type of stuff, it is interesting to note that all of it together combined is a little odd for something that's supposed to just be a machine. They have so many inconsistencies that would help almost imply that they're more than machine. It fits a little too conveniently. It's a little bit suspect to, when you look at it all, sit there and say that they are 100% machine, despite they have so many inconsistencies to the contrary. And lastly, if none of this convinced you, or at least make you ask questions about the automatons and their origins, here's an old piece of concept art straight from Arrowhead of what seems to be an automaton head, or even maybe the current high value asset model we have in game now, with, well, you guessed it, a human brain implanted right inside of it. Take a look at that little goopy guy in there. That is 100% an organic brain operating that automaton machine. So, while just concept art, I think it's pretty telling as to what the automatons are supposed to be in general, and pretty well proves that they are definitely more than 100% machine. On a personal note, I think the idea that the automatons being human with their brains nestled into these machines makes them way cooler and more engaging as an enemy faction. It really speaks to like the automatons' motivations and how far they are willing to reject their humanity to destroy their most hated enemy, Super Earth. So yeah, let me know what you think about this in the comments. Do you think the automatons are more than just machine, or am I just huffing that biofuel? Thanks for watching, and for every like I get, I'll shoot down one bot dropship for the glory of Super Earth. That's right. See you later.